Today, we're going to talk everything to do with negotiations, fears, failures, and why did that happen moments, right? Really important. Just to set the scene, to set the tone, this will be interactive, it will be fun, it will be educational. Encourage you all to get involved, ask questions, call out if something doesn't make sense, and or equally take a step back and just flow with the emotions. This is all about learning, educating, and believing that we can be the best business owners, the best freelancers, and the best people that we can be to negotiate in terms of our success. And so I will be asking you to get involved. If you are comfortable enough, please use the chat function. And what I will do is, because it's being recorded, I won't name anyone's names, but I'll just share the sentiment verbally. So who am I? My name is Sonya Barlow. I am a 2015 graduate, started working in the tech industry. And when I first landed my first job role, I kind of just said yes. I didn't know you could negotiate. I didn't know there was any chance of doing anything else. Between my first and second role, I negotiated a 20 grand pay rise. And between my second to third job, it was nearly 20 grand again, right? So as a woman of color in tech, significant, made a massive difference, really did bring in a whole new perspective. Wow. One, the fact is that someone was willing to pay me less than 20K for doing the same or similar job. But most importantly is the way that I could do that so far. 3 years ago, I started a brunch club, and it was just to bring women together to talk about career and life and capability and confidence. Unfortunately, that brunch aspect didn't work, but today we are one of the largest social enterprises in the UK with the largest mentoring program with over 600 people. Outside of that, I have my diversity and business consultancy. What have I negotiated on right now? Well, actually, I've just sold 2 3-month projects to 2 of the largest clients in Germany. 1, Babbel, and 2, Steady are my clients. We take them through a 3-month audit and D&I program, as well as having keynotes and various workshops on entrepreneurial subjects. Why am I sharing this with you? Because the negotiation strategy aspect comes from a place of trying, getting it wrong, and trying again. And the point is, I believe I've got it right to some extent. And so I really just want to share what I've learned. My biggest negotiation in the last 12 months has been the fact that this time last year I had no revenue, no income because of COVID, and yet I was able to negotiate a book deal. Unprepared to Entrepreneur is now available on Amazon as well as other bookstores to pre-order. It has a whole section on negotiation, but most importantly, it has a whole book on the guide of what to do when you're starting and running your own business. I briefly spoke about the LMF network. We are the largest social enterprise to come out of the UK. We also have a sister franchise network in Canada. But what I really want to share outside of all of that is we did our own study. We asked people everywhere to say, what has stopped you from achieving your goal? What has stopped you from moving? What has stopped you from being socially mobile? Turns out most respondents viewed developing negotiation skills as extremely important. Findings also showed that 45% of females viewed finding a mentor as important compared to over 4% of males. It's important to improve the state of social mobility, and hence why negotiation skills are core to our learnings and teaching. So I'd love to get to know a little bit more about you. What is your name? What is your 2021 goal? What do you do? What are you as a business owner, as a freelancer? What would you like from this workshop? The more I know about you, the better I can help. The more I know about you, the better we can accommodate this workshop to suit your needs. And more importantly, please remember, as always, just because you aren't in person doesn't mean that every opportunity is not a networking opportunity. Introduce yourself online. Tell me who you are, why it matters, what's your goal, and how I can get to know you. So in the chat, who's brave enough to go first? Let me know. What is your 2021 goal? What do you do? What are you afraid of? What is the main takeaway? What keeps you confident? You can answer any question just to build up the conversation a little bit more. And on that note, please do remember to connect with me on social comms and social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. So today we're going to leave with an understanding of negotiation skills. We're going to be able to negotiate our worth, and most importantly, have reassurance that you've got this, because you definitely do. So who's joining us today? I see some private messages coming across, which is amazing. People are here because they want to be able to negotiate a pay rise. They want to be able to negotiate their freelancer rates. They want to be able to negotiate flexible working. That's brilliant. It's a good starting point. It really makes a difference. Someone's message saying, I also work in tech. My goal for 2021 is to negotiate a salary increase and promotion. All right, so let's get that money and let's make it worth the time, the effort. Thank you so much for sharing. So the first thing we need to realize is that negotiation is basically a difficult conversation. In this instance, a difficult conversation is any situation where the needs, the wants, the opinions of those involved are diverse, the feelings are strong, and emotions are running high. Usually the reason behind such strong feelings is they have a lot at stake and dread the consequence. When you think about difficult conversations, well, actually managing a difficult conversation has become an integral part of work and success at home. According to research, we interact with somewhere between 100 to 200 acquaintances. Instead of avoiding difficult conversation, it pays to find the courage to start confronting colleagues and family members in a constructive way with skill and empathy, and that's what we're going to learn today. For the productive conversation, tame your emotional brain, says Dr. Albert Einstein. He says the emotional side of our brain is the dinosaur brain. If you're in your dinosaur brain, you're going to play out 6 million-year-old program and nothing is going to happen. You're going to fight, you're going to run away. It's going to be like Godzilla meets Rodan. There's a lot of screaming and yelling, but not much is accomplished, but a lot is falling down. Does anyone relate to any of this? Do you feel like it's a difficult conversation? If so, what's difficult about it? Does it feel heightened in emotion? Does it feel difficult in being able to articulate your words? Do you feel like in that moment you forget what to say? Someone's message saying, yes, I need a more seamless conversation. Another person has said, absolutely, I freeze up. I lose myself. I don't know what to say. Okay, so let's solve that. Let's deal with it. Let's do what we need to do. Fear of rejection, don't know how to sell myself properly and showcase my worth. We're going to deal with that. And thank you for being so brave enough to share. If you want to get along with people and understand what's going on in situations, you have to ask yourself, why are they saying this to me? What's going on with them? That is the doorway to understanding, a doorway to getting what you want, a doorway to compassion. Rather than judging the person, try and understand them. Try and take a step back and really flow through the emotion. See if it works for you. See if it makes sense. So what are the 7 steps to managing a difficult conversation? 1, establish connection. 2, understand who owns the problem. 3, don't judge. 4, listen. 5, ask questions. 6, approach the conversation with curiosity rather than judgment. And 7, actively focus on what you're hearing, not what you're saying. I'm going to pause for a second and ask, are there any questions on this? Anything that you may not understand? Anything you want to unpack a little bit more? Remember, the more questions you ask, the more time you invest, the better it's going to be for you, so I can support you as much as you can. Let me know. What do you think? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Is there anything there that needs to be better? What does it mean when I say actively focus on what you're hearing, not what you're saying? You often find yourself interpreting someone else's perspective into your own. What if I give you an example? What about when you make dinner and someone says, oh, that's tasty? Instead of thinking, oh, that person likes my food, you're thinking, they said tasty, they used the words nice. Does that mean it's not 100%? Does that mean it's not where it needs to be? Maybe I could have added more pepper, I could have added more salt, I could have done more. And actually the person's just said it's tasty. Take it face value, it's tasty, yum, I'm gonna try and make it again. If your manager, if your client says, do you know what? You've got a great product. I don't have the budget for it, but I also don't want to devalue. Don't go and take that as they don't want to work with me. They don't know what I do. I haven't made myself clear. No, take it on face value. We don't have the budget. We think you're doing great things. Take a step back and flow through it. In most cases, when we're thinking about negotiation, we're thinking about money. Money, for some reason, rules the world, right? Money is the one thing that is universal, alongside time and alongside failure. Everyone fails and makes mistakes. Everyone needs some kind of income, money, revenue generated for them to have a life of some kind. And everyone has limited time. So my question to everyone here is, I need someone to either unmute themselves or to share it in the chat, and let's unpack. Discuss a difficult conversation you've had. On reflection, what would you have done differently? And bring up the question and I'll let you know what I could have done, what we should have done, what you could have done else. Let's make it as interactive as possible. Does anyone have a scenario they'd like to share? Negotiating a pay rise, negotiating childcare, negotiating who cooks for the evening. Someone says, I wish I believed in myself more. Absolutely. You have to remember, if you aren't your biggest cheerleader, how can somebody else be? If you don't sit there, stand there, sharing, caring, and believing in yourself, how can someone else? I appreciate on the surface, it sounds very simplistic, right? On the surface, I'm saying, believe in yourself, be your cheerleader. And you're thinking, really? Is that it? Is that as simple as it is? Is that what I do? Someone says, I wish I knew the other person more. Another person says, I wish I just knew how to make it happen. Let me give you an example. You are a freelancer, a client has come saying, we want your services, but we don't have the budget for you. We'd love to work with you. How would you respond back to that? Would you say, I can't work with you? Would you say, that's fine, I'll lower my rates and give you what you want? Or would you see what the mutual benefit is? Would you try and negotiate a different elements like a testimonial or like a video? Would you ask for some marketing support? Would you lower the days? Would you increase the rate? Someone replied back saying, just say, let's see what we can do that budget. Absolutely. Let's see what we can do that budget. Let's be really honest and open. One of my clients had a 3K budget, right? 3K. They wanted to roll out a whole diversity inclusion program for 3K. I sat down with them and I said, this is what I can do for 3K. I spoke to 6 other people in their business, and what they really wanted, and let me, what they really wanted was a program that was about 160K. On a serious note, I said, look, you said 3K, you've now wanting a request that's at least a year's worth of work. Let's meet somewhere in the middle. Go back and see how much money you actually have to spend or invest. I'll tell you what I can do for that time. They went back. The maximum we can give is 15K. Great, let me work with 15K. 15K is this. In return for this, anything more is going to be charged per hour. But what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to lose that client. I didn't want to lose that contract. But I did want to make it really clear as to, well, I'm a business, I'm a worker, I'm a consultancy, I've got a team. Someone else says, a few years ago, negotiating was difficult when I worked in retail, too scared at a time to stick my guns about what I wanted. And we learned from that, right? The point is, we know in the past it didn't work in the way that we wanted it to. How do we make it different in the future? Another question that's coming, how do you negotiate with friends, even if it's in business? Such a great question. And actually, examples of difficult conversations do start with friendships. A great way of doing so, it's something that I personally have found very helpful, is one, actively listen. Active listening, when you literally are in an active state of listening, your goal is to be in a psychological mindset of just hearing what the other person is saying. This means you are not interrupting them with your own lens, but listening to the other person as the other. The second, once you've actively listened, is reflecting. In image relationship therapy, a type of couples counseling, a therapist encourages to use the prompts like what I heard you say is, did I get that right? Just to clarify, was that the point you're trying to make? When you're negotiating with friends, even if it's in business, repeat back to them what they are asking of you. What I heard you say is that you are unable to come to my birthday, but you'd like to do something. Is that correct? What is it we can do? What I heard you say is you would like a friends and family discount, which basically means that you don't want to pay for my services. I appreciate what you're suggesting, but considering I'm a new business owner, unfortunately, you have to consider that that takes my time and fundamentally doesn't pay for the food on the table. So, what I can offer you is a friends and family discount. Absolutely. If my 1 hour charge is 300, actually, as you, I'll give you 3 hours for 300 across 3 weeks. You're saving £600, but you're gaining 3 hours worth of client time. It's about really taking a stand, taking a step back and understanding what is it that needs to be done and what you can be doing better. Why does it even matter? Just today, this morning on TikTok and on Instagram, I posted 7 things that you need to do when you are negotiating. 7 things. And here's the 7. And if you can take one slide away from today, this is going to be the most important one. The most important. 1, what are your goals? Identify your goal. Tell me what your goal is. 2, what is the strategy? 3, what is your signature style? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? Are you someone who is fairly red, fairly blue, fairly green? You have to build motivation. You have to understand what you're willing to compromise on. Is it pay? Is it budget? Is it time? Is it flexibility? What is the mutual benefit? And then you have to practice. When I negotiated a pay rise of nearly 20K between my second and third role, I thought, wow, I'm getting so much money. Turns out I was also working double the time, the effort. I was traveling around Europe to see clients. I was living out of a hotel. I was living in trains. I might have negotiated the budget, but I didn't negotiate my time, and I definitely didn't negotiate my mental sanity. Last week, I turned down £600 worth of work because I said, do you know what? I need a day off, and I'm okay with taking a day off. Negotiation is difficult, absolutely, but it is crucial in knowing what we want, how we can become the people we want to be. Different types of negotiation. One, distributive. It's also called distributive bargaining. A type of negotiation occurs when there's a limited amount of resources and it feels like one party loses for the other to win. Integrative, often referred to as win-win. When everyone benefits from an agreement. Management, negotiating with management is stressful, absolutely. Co-workers, well, you have to develop a plan with the whole team, but you also have to solve conflict in the workplace. And vendor negotiations, what about when you are tendering, when you are a supplier, when you are the person who is going through procurement? How does that work? The most important rule is silence is golden. A real example, last year when the pandemic hit, I was talking to a company that had raised £30 million in funding. Just for context, £30 million in funding, okay? They asked me for an hour's workshop on how to succeed with LinkedIn, one of my smashing workshops. In 12 months, I've gone from 1,000 connections to over 17,000 and turned to a LinkedIn influencer with one of those blue ticks. Makes a big difference. I was so desperate. They rang me and they were like, right, we want you to do a workshop, but we've got no budget. I was like, well, actually, my rate is £500. I panicked within a minute. I was like, but I really want to work with you. It's 350. I panicked within another minute. Do you know what? It's 150. In 3 minutes, I'd gone from £500 to 150. Do you know how we ended that session? It's for free. You can take it for free, and I'll throw in a coaching call, and all you've got to do is give me a testimonial, and you can record the session. I completely lost it. I had a meltdown. I freaked out. I panicked. But what I realized is if I had just been silent for a second, for a minute, I would have allowed the other person to come back with what they thought would have been acceptable, given my experience, given my time, given my expertise, given where I am. Has anyone else panic sold themselves? And if so, please do share your stories. I panicked so hard that it devalued myself and lost my worth. But here's what I could have done instead. Inquire. I could have cultivated an attitude of discovery, pretending like I didn't know anything. I could have acknowledged. I acknowledge I've understood what you're saying. Advocacy, when you sense that they've expressed everything, you go back to them, clarify their position without minimizing theirs and yours. And then you problem solve, you co-create a solution. What may work? Rather than an hour session, let me give you a half an hour whistle stop tour. I appreciate you don't have £500, but for an hour, for half an hour, do you have 100? Can you give me comms on your social comms, on your website? Can you give me a testimonial? What about a website display? What about a article? What about saying, thank you for the proposal. I'm going to go back and take 24 hours to think about it before I come back to you. Don't be afraid to say, I'll come back in 12 hours. I'll come back in 24 hours. Give a time frame. Thank you for what you've shared. I'll come back to you at this date and see what we can do. So here's an email that I got a couple of weeks ago, and I want to know what you would do if you're in that situation, right? So this is an email from one of the largest social media platforms in the world. The email's in blue, so I'll read it out. Hi, Sonya. I wondered if you'd want to be a part of a 45 minutes chat where we would love to get to know more, hear more about your experiences and also any ideas you can share with us. If there's something you can make, I'll be looking for people between these times. So I responded saying, great, thank you for thinking of me. Can I ask what is the budget and what are the next steps? The reply was, this is just an interview for feedback and doesn't have budget associated with it. If that is the condition, no problems, but we typically don't use budget for quick feedback sessions, whereby we would if we were featuring Sonya in some kind of marketing keynote speaker event. For context, this is one of the largest social media platforms in the world. They are asking for 45 minutes feedback so they can improve their products and roll out new tools that can generate income. They assume that 45 minutes is a quick chat. What would you have done in this scenario? How would you have responded back? What would you have said? Would you have said anything? Someone says if you work for free or exposure, you'll never be out of work. Question, is this a live event with an audience? No, this is a one-to-one call with someone who led the product management team and wanted feedback on the features of the product and therefore what tools they could therefore roll out or build to make the experience better. So in my mind, that's actually market research. In my mind, that's a focus group. In my mind, that's consultancy. For context, I'd already done 2 pieces of work with them beforehand for no money, but yes, in the view that we can build out a partnership, and yes, in the view that there will be something further coming along, and a testimonial. What would you have replied? How would you have dealt with it? My reply most basically was the fact that I laid out my cards. I went back to the strategy that we've just discussed. So from my understanding, you would like me to share my feedback of the tool for 45 minutes. I acknowledge what you are asking, but in reality, maybe you aren't aware of this, but I've already worked twice for your company with no monetary compensation, with the view that eventually I would be able to get some and or introductions internally to your business. I appreciate that you may not know this, but given my expertise, given my experience, given the fact that I'm a small business owner, unfortunately for you, 45 minutes may be a quick feedback session. For me, an hour rate of mine is £300. I'm happy to work with you if, 1, we can reduce the time required. 2, if you can meet somewhere in the middle, as I mentioned, an hour rate is £300. And 3, if I can have some introductions to internal team members around diversity inclusion, around women in tech, and around your outreach and brand partnerships. Why? Because for me personally, that would have helped me to potentially gain partnerships, to go forward, to have some internal comms. Now, the person that I was speaking to via the email did not come back to me. But at least I stood up for myself. At least I asked for something which wasn't just monetary. In a couple of weeks' time, I will be doing a keynote and emceeing one of the largest tech conferences in the UK. Believe me, between you and I, they didn't have much budget. And so, what's more powerful than money? Data, emails, introductions. I went back saying, I'm happy to take the budget you have, but I'd also like 20 introductions to your speakers internally. That for me is awesome, because the speakers are like big names, potential partners, people that I can loop into. I need them to know me. I want to get to know them. This is an easy way in, because someone who's introducing you, there's a trusted mutual party. It saves me the time and effort doing it myself, finding new business. And so therefore it makes sense. That's not to say it's the same for everyone. It's just to say, think about the alternatives that can be outside of just monetary compensation. Equally, you must remember that when you are negotiating, you have to take a deep breath. You have to be mindful. You have to take a moment. Affirm your intention. What is it you want? Count to 3 before replying. Even in your mind, before you speak and say something. Reread the email 15 minutes before sending. Ask a mentor, friend, or sponsor to practice with you, and don't be afraid to ask for support. Great question. What quality is the most helpful during a negotiation? Such a great question. I think the quality which is most important when negotiating is patience. And I personally don't have a lot of patience. I'm not a very patient person. I'm very energetic. So it's something I actively have had to build and had to learn and have had to conquer. But it's patience. It's knowing that, 1, you don't have to answer the question there and then. 2, you don't have to say yes there and then. And most importantly, you can take it back into your own court if you're patient and you understand that actually this is the start of the conversation. It's not the end. Go back. When do you need an answer by? Or I would like 24 hours to think about this. I appreciate what you've proposed. Let me come back with an alternative. Can you tell me what the benchmarks are? What you've paid speakers before? What you've paid clients before? What does good look like to you? And thank you for the questions that have been asked. So the question is, what holds you back from having the negotiation that you want? What is it in your perspective? Is it fear? Is it rejection? Is it a lack of understanding? Is it a lack of patience? Is it not knowing what to do? Is it feeling like you aren't good enough? Is it not knowing the other person's reaction? And it's such a fair comment. Thank you so much for sharing, not knowing the other person's reaction. But whenever you do know their reaction, again, take a breath, stay patient. Okay, this is what they've said. I understand. What can I do in return? If you're uncertain about the other person's action, take a moment back. Step back, lean into your emotions, lean into your compassion, into your listening skills. If you're scared of rejection, the point is you don't know what you don't know until you start doing it. If you're scared of being told no, well, the worst thing that can happen is you're told no. So you might as well give it a shot. You might as well ask, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. No is never a no. No is always a not right now. No is a not right now. No is that your reasoning isn't strong enough. Come back to me with strong reasoning. Come back to me with data. Come back to me with benchmarks. Come back to me with what else is going out in the ecosystem. Come back to me to tell me why I should care. Come back to me to tell me what the difference is. When we think about negotiation, what holds you back from having the negotiation you want? We have 10 minutes left. I'd love to get your questions. I'd love to answer them. I'd love to just support you in believing and achieving the goals that you want. Remember, the most important slide of the day is this one. What are your goals when it comes to negotiation? What is your strategy? We've spoken about one strategy. What is your signature? The point is, I'm impulsive. I know that about myself. I'm very extroverted. I'm very results driven. Is that going to be the same negotiation strategy when someone is slightly introverted, when they want to be a storyteller, when they are cautious? Absolutely not. It's about changing it around. What are you willing to compromise on? What is the mutual benefit? When we talk about comms and personality style, I'm talking about this. I am a D and an I. I'm a red and a yellow. I've tried being a blue and a green. It just doesn't work for me, unfortunately. And that's okay now that I've acknowledged who I am. How do you have that conversation? Someone says, what should we never be willing to compromise on? It's such a great question, but it's very subjective, right? I guess for me now, I am a chronic migraine sufferer. And for me, I guess I'm not willing to compromise on my health, is what I've decided. And I'm okay with that. That's probably my one and only. I'm not willing to compromise on. That's it. That's probably the only one. For me, at least. I'm happy to compromise on money. I'm happy to compromise on time. I'm happy to compromise on effort. I'm happy to compromise on training. I'm happy to compromise on flexible working. But the reason why I left the corporate world and started my own business is because I wanted to be able to have a flexible calendar and say yes to the things that suit me. And I wanted to be able to control my calendar enough that if I had a migraine flare up, I could say, I'm sorry, I can't do it, and go to bed. What about yourselves? What are you not willing to compromise on? Such a great question. I'd love for everyone to think about it, everyone to answer it. I appreciate that it's half past and some people may have to drop off. And so if that's the case, please do connect with me. Please do remember iconic officers have their day passes and you will receive a recording of this presentation. But we still have a few minutes or so for anyone that has questions, anyone that wants to share, anyone that wants to unmute themselves, get involved, as well as those who are sending me questions. And thank you for those who are privately sending me comments because it does make a massive difference. So what can I do tomorrow? When you're having a difficult conversation, don't be led by purpose. Sorry, don't be led by emotion. Understand the purpose and practice. When you're managing emotions, slow down, take a breath, make a plan. When you're negotiating, know your worth, stay silent, and know your compromise. The person who asked, what should we never be willing to compromise on? I think that's a question for everyone to take away is what are you willing to not compromise on? And how can you make sure that that is accessible? A really simple example is I have a standard out of office that says I will reply back in 72 hours. And if I don't, it might have gone into spam or ping me a message. Why? Because I want to set boundaries. I'm very cautious about my health. And most importantly, I think it's really important for you to be able to direct that conversation to the other party. So it's not we're ignoring you. I work part-time for 2 other companies. At the bottom of my signature, it clearly says I only work certain days. Why? So we're setting expectations. When I'm negotiating and anytime I offer someone a discount and or a reduced rate, I always put it into the invoice. The question is how to cope with the person who wants to lead the whole conversation and base it on their own rules. Well, unfortunately, in that instance, sometimes having that conversation via phone doesn't work. What I always encourage is have an email thread. This is a conversation we had. This is what you said. This is what I propose. Please let me know. But someone who wants to lead the conversation in their own time, set the agenda yourself, set the meeting. I've set this meeting so we cover these 3 points. I'd love to kick it off and then invite you to share your perspectives and then come to a good solution at the end. Someone who is based on their own rules, we have to understand again, starting from the beginning, as we spoke about, what is bothering them? Why do they have this concern? What is something we're not seeing? How can we make sure that we understand them better? If you're trying to negotiate on a promotion, is it a matter of the fact that actually you're negotiating on a promotion and actually your manager is very red and focused on a very blue lifestyle where the business is focused on results and is taking caution, wants data? If you're a yellow and you're storytelling, you're being inspiration, it doesn't work. I would most definitely recommend the book Split the Difference. Split the Difference is a book written by an ex kind of, professional negotiator, an agent, and it definitely is amazing. But more than that, I would recommend one, putting in one-to-ones with people that you think are great at negotiating, and two, talking to people. You learn the best when you share examples, when you share scenarios, when you ask other people how they are doing, how they're feeling, something that's worked for them, and then you try and imitate it. Imitation is absolutely the best form of flattery, but imitation is not just, hey, we're going to copy you. Imitation is, I love this one thing that someone has said. I'm going to go and try it in my own comfort area, in my own organization, and see if it works. And remember, if you want to find out more, definitely do pre-order my book. And most importantly, stick up and stay with the great conversations that we're going to have at Iconic Offices, because we've got loads more workshops around these confidence, these negotiation skills, around knowing your worth, around knowing your power and your purpose. Why? Because it has to come from the within. So as we come to our final few minutes, I'd love to know if there's any final questions, if there's anything that anybody would like covered that we haven't done so far. I remind you all that taking a deep breath goes a long way. What is the most important skill you need? Patience. What is the one thing you need to consider? What are you not willing to compromise on? Or what are you willing to compromise on? And then you just have to give it a go. You have to practice. That could be recording yourself. That could be having these conversations. That can be sharing it via mentors or mentees. But it very much is about going in strong. Any final questions? Any final thoughts? Anything that I can help with? I appreciate that people are falling off because they have work and they have calls. And thank you for all the messages that you're sharing. Absolutely. So for those who are joining late, there will be a recording and the lovely ladies at Iconic Offices will be sending them out. I will also be sending out a discount code for anyone that would like a one-to-one masterclass on negotiation skills, especially with Iconic Offices as a discount. But most importantly, I appreciate this is a lot of information I've shared. And the point is, the next steps are really to go and digest and take it away. If you have any questions, let us know. But also, don't be afraid to just give it a go, see what happens. What's the worst that can happen? I had a client before Christmas in America, before Christmas, sorry. He'd never negotiated, but he'd been there for a year. We negotiated a 17K pay rise. A huge question would be how to address negotiations versus imposter syndrome. Absolutely. And unfortunately, we don't have time to go into imposter syndrome just because it's so deep and so vast. And that's possibly something that Christina and I can take away and do for you and deliver a workshop just on imposter syndrome because it really does need its own kind of hour or so. But really simply, in order to overcome imposter syndrome, a lot of it is yourself that holds the barriers. And so the point is, if you go on to number 3 here, it's understand your signature. Imposter syndrome comes from also not being able to align your skills with what your recommendations or what your requests are. If you follow my Instagram, I have tons of little like reels on imposter syndrome and kind of, captions and so forth. But the point is, if that's a workshop you will want, we can definitely deliver it. It's just, you just can't cover it in a minute, unfortunately, because it's so vast. And imposter syndrome is definitely not a woman's only issue. Everyone feels like an imposter. It's just termed differently. So as we come to the end of our session, thank you so much for joining. Any final thoughts or questions, please do let me know in the chat. Like I've mentioned, we are here. We're here to help. We want to help. And it's really important for us that we're able to help you achieve your level of success, whatever that may be. My name is Sonya Barlow. I'm so glad that you were able to join us today. If you're watching the recording, please get in touch if there's anything you need from a DM perspective. And thank you to Iconic Offices always for bringing me back and for just being so great. And I encourage you to check out all the other events that they have because actually it's smashing. And I've never known a workspace to have so many beautiful events that are such a vast topic and range of discussion points. Anything else, let me know. And please remember that really you have the power in your own hands. So I just want to watch you go out, smash it, go out, grab it, and tell me your success stories.